Mr. Main, Mr. Davis, Mr. Witter, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown-Burke, Dr. Charles, Mr. Chin, Mr. Clark, Mr. Cousins, Ms. Crawford, Ms. Daly, Ms. Davis, Mr. Golding, Mr. Graham, Dr. Guy, Ms. Hamilton, Ms. Hannah, Dr. Brown-Burke, Mr. Henriquez, Mr. Henry, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lawrence, Miss Lee, Mr. Montague, Miss Morrison, Mr. Hilton, Mrs. Nita Garvey, Mr. Paulwell, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Siblist, Mr. Slowly, Mrs. Vaz, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Wright.
Members, just before we begin this sitting of this House, it has come to my attention that in addition to the increase in murders in this country, that this morning a mother in Clarendon and her 4 children were heinously murdered. Members of Parliament, Jamaica, these are dark times for our country. And we need, as a country, all of us from all walks of life must stop and reflect and pray for all of us as citizens of this country. The murders have to stop. It is senseless, it is gruesome, it is evil, it is barbaric. Outside is dark, the clouds are dark, they're hanging over us, and all around us, today is a dark day in this country. As a mother, as a female, as a citizen, as a parliamentarian, I am just beside myself. I express on my own behalf, as a citizen of this country, as a parliamentarian, as one of us as Jamaican, my condolences to all the members, family members of the victims. And what I ask for us as a country to do is to stop and reflect and pray for ourselves. This is the responsibility not of one person, not of one side, not of one ministry. It is a dark cloud that hangs over every one of us as a citizen of this country. And so we ask God in his mercy, because when you lose people that you love, you feel it so badly. I cannot begin to imagine the pain of family members who have lost children. 15, 10, 11 months, I think 3 years. I ask that God in his mercy reach out and cover the family members and all of us at this time.
Madam Speaker, from the constituency that I represent and the seat in which I sit today, I've had to witness to some very horrific incidents of violence where gangs shoot numbers at various times. My colleague from St. James is here. We have seen 6, 7, 19 people shot, 7 dead, and we have seen the bloodletting. But this morning events has a certain savagery to it that is hard to understand. Look at the slaughter and literal butchery of Kamisha Wright, a 34-year-old mother of Cocoa Peace. Her 4 children in the same room. Slaughtered. Kimani Smith, 15-year-old. Shamari Smith, 10-year-old. Kafana Smith, 5-year-old. And a little boy of 23 months. Is a savage and brutality of unequal proportions. I think it is an event that must cause us to pause and think again. There's a pall of violence at large in our country that affects all of us. And we have to examine how we go forward to deal with this kind of savagery. It's inhumanity. And Madam Speaker, I must tell you, I had a discussion with the leader of the opposition this morning. But all as leaders have to understand the character of this kind of murder. Senseless, brutal, savage. Requires a united and total response by the state. This particular may not be a reflection. It's the same root cause of gang violence, where people have no value of life. But this raw savagery reflects a deeper social, psychosocial problem. And as a country, we have to look at the service we provide, how to reach these vulnerable individuals before the vulnerable families, and assure the country they can get some access to the kind of support required to prevent this kind of occurrence. 4 children and a mother is utterly impossible to kind of come to this in any kind of cohesive thinking. Involving what is, my understanding, is essentially a domestic issue. Right? The police have actually apprehended someone that they have in custody who is, in fact, a distant family member that's supposed to be involved. Certainly have to examine how this kind of madness gets the family. We have seen increasing levels of inter-family violence in recent times. Domestic violence, as it is classified in the police records. But I said the raw brutality of the violence. The question my colleague asked Sotoboshi is, how did we get here? In Don Parish, that was at an extremely low number last year. I think my colleague and friend is from MP from St. Mary. This year has seen a spike in numbers when we examine it nearly 50% were domestic violence. There was one killing where 2 adults argued over a parking lot, who should park first, and they killed each other. Increasingly, we're seeing that kind of activity. I had an employer who recently he is convinced he saved a life because he employs 2 young men from a different part of the corporate area. They don't know each other. They don't even know they worked for him. And he had to bring them to a common warehouse and a particular amount to work together. Of course, they're seeing each other for the first time. And luckily, he was nearby because one then accused the other one of freeing him. Now, those of us who represent Urban can know what I mean. The other young man was only looking at him in an unusual way. Maybe silently. Did he know him? Or did he know him? Because they have never seen each other, didn't know where they come from. They always happened to be working for the same employer. And the one who was looking at the other one decided that you pricked me. And then pull a weapon and decided to fight. Had the employer not been present, they would have had a death. The response of the police is always far-reaching, and there's a certain responsibility as policing for apprehending violence producers. But this kind of savagery is not about policing. It's a far deeper psychosocial problem which we have to unite on as a country, as a people, and find the ways of identifying the vulnerable ones and begin to get at the root cause of this prevalence of violence. The government has in fact established a Violence Commission which will bring some academic and discipline to the thoughts and to what is happening, but our action and our commitment cannot await that report. There's just too much of it, and it's not Jamaican. It's not the Jamaica we're all here, we're not that old. Some of us, yes, are getting there, but this is not characteristic for society. The society I grew up in, this morning was in a constituency of a member from Southwest St. Andrew with some wonderful little kids, all playing with each other. And staff had to sign up, live good. And a grandmother was there with us, with the granddaughter, and a big sister with the little boy. And you can see the grandmother reminded, that's how we grew up. Grandmothers would teach their children and their grandchildren and the extended family to live together. It's the right thing to do. It was a Christian thing to do. The grandmother was the one who would go to church, take them out on a weekend. Now, even the mothers are becoming victims and targets of brutality and savagery. So, Madam Speaker, we had to raise it. I think this particular event has shaken the entire leadership of the country, has touched the hearts of the entire country. And let's hope it's the beginning of a united action to pull together what is necessary and to begin to look at the values and attitudes, as we'd say, around us, and how as a country we can restore that sense of order, but of respect for each other, value of life, and just living with each other as brothers and sisters. I told a simple note that is different, A foreigner once said to me very recently, one of his most remarkable impressions of Jamaica. He said, it's the only country I've been to where I don't have any hyphenated citizen. He said, everybody I meet say, I'm Jamaican. Whatever his color, whatever variation is from that, whatever his apparent ethnic origin, they just say, I'm Jamaican. We are all Jamaicans. We are proud of that brand, and we can, everyone will say, we feel what we are as Jamaicans. We have to begin to practice and restore the great value of who we are as Jamaicans, working together for one cause and for the improvement of our total society. This violence, Madam Speaker, I hope has reawakened our consciences across the country, and we urge all of us to work together to restore the value of life and good order among ourselves. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I think it saddens all of us that we are again engaging in this kind of lamentation because of what has happened today, the savage killing of a mother and 4 children, some of them very small, throats cut. It's a degree of savagery which indicates a certain mentality which is very disturbed and depraved. And it indicates that our country has a problem with violence, which is multifaceted. It is not limited to the kinds of violence which has generally been preoccupying those with responsibility for trying to improve the national security of the country, which is organized criminal violence around extortion, money laundering, scamming, and other forms of criminal activity. This just appears to be another instance of a willingness to go to extremes to ventilate whatever hurt feelings or anger may have been preoccupying the mind of the perpetrator. And it speaks to a need for us to have a serious program of anger management and teaching life skills around how to cope with stress and adverse situations and perceived disrespect, the latter being, unfortunately, the cause of much of the violence in the country, sometimes being the initial trigger for a violent act, which itself leads to ensuing acts of violence and a spiral of reprisals. I join with the spirit of the remarks of the Minister of National Security arising from this horrible incident, but reiterate that for the country to move forward from this dark place we are now, we do need to find interventions that can tackle these issues. Law enforcement is only one aspect of it, but the psychosocial challenges that bedevil our society require other forms of intervention as well, and are needed desperately and in a serious way. The opposition will support all measures to address these terrible problems the country is facing, as long as they're consistent with our oath to this Parliament to uphold the Constitution and defend it. I just close by expressing my condolences to the family of the deceased, to the community in which they live, which no doubt has been traumatized by this event, and indeed to the whole country, who is once again in a state of shaking and holding our heads, saying, what has happened to our Jamaica? How did we get here? How can we get out of this deep morass? May God bless us and give us the genuine wisdom and commitment that is required to solve our problems. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Minister, I just want one moment. I just want to place on the record that I know the Minister of Education, the Honourable Favour Williams, did go down to Clarendon and was on the scene of this heinous situation this morning. I will now allow member from then. I would then Minister Fort, Malahoo Fort, and then the House Leader. And Miss Williams. Minister Williams, if you would like to. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this morning when I woke up, something was not right with the look of the whole atmosphere. I felt that something was happening, but I could not pinpoint what it was. When I got the news, I realized that gloom, I do not know, it is over the entire country, because I can speak to about 3 to 4 different parishes. And it speaks to the sadness. Today, the 21st day of June, that has really come into our hearts to know that Jamaica, a place that we used to use and say it take the village and to raise the child. What has gone wrong? That we have now moved from men to women. We are now going to babies and little kids. Madam Speaker, I want to stand and to condemn this brutal act. I also want to send my condolences to the family of Ms. Kamisha Wright, just 34 years of age, to lose her 4 kids. I want to appeal that I came in this parliament and I've stood up many, many times and talk about root causes, and sometimes, you know, we don't understand that we need to know what is happening in some of these homes from very early. And that is why I always appeal for social intervention. We need to know the children that are going to school, that we can know their behavior to see what is happening from school, because it shows you sometimes what is happening at home. But I'm not going to belabor the point today. I believe, Madam Speaker, we have to step up the program for conflict resolution, or we resolve conflict, because a number of these crimes are committed among families too. Gangs, extortion, scamming, but we must not eliminate family violence. Family life must be taught now in school. And I believe it is time for us to look at the root causes, because no human being cannot create this gruesome act and is mentally stable. So something is not right. And Madam Speaker, I hope we will not stand in this parliament again to condemn anything of this magnitude and nature. I am hoping that immediately we take steps as a parliament to look now with a joint select committee to start looking at how we can look at the socio-economic programs and problems that are facing most of these communities, in order that we can start doing something more to effect the change before it's too late. I personally feel very saddened today, and I am hoping and praying that the Lord will give the community the strength, the school that these children attend the strength, in order that we can come together to comfort each other at this very dark moment of time. God bless you.
Minister Williams and then Minister Malahoo Ford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, today is a very dark day for Jamaica. When we can wake up to news that a 31-year-old mother, Kamisha, a 15-year-old child, Kimana, 10-year-old child, Shemari, 5-year-old child, Kafana, and 23-month-old child, Kishan, were stabbed to death in their own home. There was nothing else that I could do this morning when I got the news than to make my way to the community, to be there to offer whatever support I could. Madam Speaker, you know that at the Ministry of Education and Youth, we have a first responder group called the CPFSA, the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, and they were on the spot. They are our agency charged with situations like this where they can be there immediately to provide psychosocial support to the family, and they were on spot when I got there. And I want to thank them for the work that they continue to do. These calls come to them at any hour of the day or night, and they respond. So, Madam Speaker, when I got there, it was as if the entire community was out. When I met the grandmother, who was the mother of Kenisha, the mother, you cannot imagine just the state she was in, the sorrow, the crying. All I could do was hold her hand. For the 2 or 3 hours I was there, just stand by her side and hold her hands. And in her sorrow, in her crying, you could hear her say, "It's my only daughter. It's my only grandchildren, and they are all gone in one shot, wiped out." And so I want to join with my colleagues in publicly condemning this violence, this horrific act today, and to offer all the support we can to the family. Not just psycho support, but whatever financial support we can to carry the family through this unspeakable sorrow that they're going through at this moment. And as I was there in the midst of all of this and heard the conversations, you have to say there is no policing that could have prevented this. This requires transformation in the lives and hearts of persons. It requires us at the Education Ministry to redouble our efforts to reach our children from very early, to teach them restorative justice, to teach them how to settle differences from very early childhood stage, when they grab a toy from each other and when they hit each other. It's from that stage that we have to begin to teach them how to relate to each other, how to interact, how to resolve conflicts, and continue it all during their years at school, so that we can get this change that we want in Jamaica, in the hearts of persons, in their minds, so that they reflect on situations when they happen and they not just react to things. Madam Speaker, I hope we never have another one of these. It is my heartfelt hope that we don't have to go through another one of these again. I also stopped at Beulah Primary School, where I spoke with the teachers who were gathered there. The school was dismissed, and the teachers are trying to come to terms with what has happened. And so I offered my support. We prayed, we sang, asked for God's guidance on the nation, Jamaica, land we love. we will continue to ensure that we provide the support that's so needed to the family at this moment, and let the family know that we stand with them. That the mother who cried for hours, let her know that her tears will not be in vain. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, ever so often we get the news of horrible crimes committed in this country. And ever so often we think that we have heard the worst of it. And just when something else happens that shocks us to the core, you know, we are called to exercise leadership on various matters. And in particular, in the Parliament, we are mandated to pass laws for peace, order, and good government. Madam Speaker, this past week has left me with so much to reflect on. But it seems as if the space for reflection is being narrowed by the frequency and the brutality of events that are taking place and which I, along with others, have to look at. You know, Madam Speaker, the country has been preoccupied with discussions on rights and freedoms. And I noted that in the discussion, the judgment of the court in Rochelle Clark and the Attorney General is typical. And I note at paragraph 86 of the judgment, the court indicating that the right to liberty is the most important right of every human being. And I've been reflecting on that. And as I think of this event, where both sides of the aisle are united in the outcry, I really part company with that part of the judgment, because where I'm coming from, it is the right to life that is the top tier right for me. As a country, Madam Speaker, I think in all of the work that needs to be done is the important work of bringing back a level of sacredness around life, so that the taking of life as almost a first resort to resolve dispute is going to be seen as so unacceptable as it is seen in this House on this occasion today. And I know my referring to the judgment, some may frown on it, but it is important because it is part of the reflection that is taking place at this time, and certainly for me. So my reference is not meant to decry anything, but to simply say that from where I'm looking at it, and in particular in the context of this occasion, the right to life is a top-tier right. And if we can't enjoy that right, nothing else can be enjoyed. May we, Madam Speaker, take a long, hard look at ourselves, and may God give us what is required to deal with what is unleashing in this nation. May it so please you.
Madam Speaker, I don't know if you would allow me for just 2 minutes. With your permission. Thank you very much, and I'll be very short. Madam Speaker, I have also been forced to reflect, as I think many would have today, in the face of such brutality. But one of the things that I think we really have to look a little deeper on is there seems to be, and more persons are beginning to talk about it and recognize it, that the fact that Jamaica is counted as one of those countries with the highest proportion of femicide means that there are some underlying situations that we have to delve a little deeper into to see what is leading to that. Every time a woman gets murdered, and especially in this kind of a brutal way, or a child, we almost go on our knees and we cry about it. And today, it is not doubled or tripled, but it's 4 times that. And so the weight of all of that is resting on us. But I believe that as a country, and I speak as a woman, as a mother, we have to begin to look at what's happening in our homes. And who are these children that we are raising? Where is this hatred, violence, and contempt for life coming from? And what are those programs and projects, actions that we can take to reduce that? I believe that after we have bared our soul, offered our condolences, and we have almost cried, then there's still some other things that we need to do in terms of the kind of research to guide policy so that we can begin to revert this part of the culture which really and truly is damaging. It saps our energy, and it casts such a gloom on all of us when things like this happen. So I want us, when we are done, to actually begin to look at the policy side of what needs to be done. Not just education, it is also health from maternal, from your clinics. It is national security. It's almost a real joined up effort to make sure that we can change the course of where we are.
Madam Speaker, I rise to share with my colleagues, and also as a mother, a grandmother, an aunt, a sister, a friend, to say how much I'm deeply pained by what has taken place in Cocoa Peace. Madam Speaker, for a mother and 4 children slain in deep rural Jamaica, a farming community. Sometimes when you hear these things, you think of urban communities. But in deep rural Jamaica, the people are known to be a gentler, more caring community. The matter of this set of killings, Madam Speaker, causes me to consider how can we, as women in this honorable house, re-engage in the sense of family and the respect for life. And so, Madam Speaker, that's the very reason why, as women in Parliament, we got together and we all supported the motion that I had tabled here, a motion which called for a space which could facilitate networking, the fostering and productive dialogue on issues of women's rights and gender equality, and undertaking actions to positively impact the inclusiveness of the legislature, of the legislative process, and our country as a whole. There is consensus among us, Madam Speaker, as women parliamentarians, that this space be established as a bicameral caucus of women parliamentarians. And this can't happen fast enough, because it's on occasions like these that as women parliamentarians and as women who are in this society, in this country we call Jamaica, that we have to work together to see how we can make a difference. It's not about which side of the divide we serve. It's about us as women in this space finding a way to make a difference. And so I just want to say that communities against communities, family against family, where is that kind and gentler society we knew? Where is it? Why there are so many sick persons out there? Why so many dog heart, as we would say in the ghetto, dog heart, cold and barbaric individuals? Why? We have to find a way. And it's not about the political divide. It's about us as persons in this parliament who have been elected to serve, to do all we can to find a way to bring back this kind and gentler society. Minister Chang and I will be leaving here shortly to visit the community and the families, and I really want to thank Minister Williams for moving quickly to go there and to be there with the family members. So at this time, Madam Speaker, I express my condolences and my deep, deep regret. And through you, I ask if we could observe a minute's silence to demonstrate our condolences and our pain as we share in this terrible situation today. Madam Speaker.
Members, we are going to rise for their souls rest in peace, and may the God of love and comfort be with us all, especially family members of the victims. Statements by ministers, announcements.
Laid on the table of the House today are the following: the General Consumption Tax, Amendment of Schedules Order 2022 and its resolution under the General Consumption Tax Act, and number 123, the Emergency Powers Act, the Emergency Powers Parish of St. Catherine, number 2 Regulations 2022 under the Emergency Powers Act, as contained in the Jamaica Gazette Supplement, Proclamations, Rules and Regulations 1213, Volume 145, dated Friday, June 17, 2022, number 86.
Bills brought from the Senate, petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I'll move the following motion. The General Consumption Tax Act, the General Consumption Tax Amendment of Schedule Order 2022 Resolution. Whereas by virtue of Section 60 of the General Consumption Tax Act, hereinafter referred to as the Act, the Minister may amend the schedules subject to affirmative resolution. And whereas on the 13th day of June 2022, the Minister made the General Consumption Tax Amendment of Schedule Order 2022, and whereas it is desirable that the General Consumption Tax Amendment of Schedule Order 2022 be affirmed, now therefore be it resolved by this Honourable House as follows. 1. The resolution may be cited as the General Consumption Tax Amendment of Schedule Order 2022 Resolution, and the General Consumption Tax Amendment of Schedule Order 2022, which was laid on the table of the House of Representatives on the 21st day of June 2022, is hereby affirmed.
Minister.
Madam Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I'll move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion.
Questions and answers to questions. Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to sittings of the House. Motions for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the House. First obtained. Public business. Public business. Minister.
Madam Speaker, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier.
Members, those in favour? Aye, aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Madam Speaker, I rise just to open and make a contribution on the motion before us. The motion is connected with the General Consumption Tax, GCT Amendment of Schedules Order 2022, and the order amends the GCT Act to provide for exemption on the importation of lithium-ion batteries. As members of this House would be aware, I first announced the removal of GCT on the importation of lithium-ion batteries during my closing budget presentation and committed to have it done during the first quarter of this fiscal year. Madam Speaker, as the government seeks to achieve accelerated and aggressive increases in renewable energy penetration, lithium-ion batteries will play a pivotal role in that energy transition. They are also aligned with the policy of promotion of electric vehicles. Lithium-ion batteries are a type of rechargeable battery that uses lithium ions as a primary component of its electrolyte, commonly used for portable electronics and electric vehicles. Their popularity has been growing as an energy storage technology. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Science and Energy and Technology over the years is in constant dialogue with the Ministry of Finance about the category of items that constitute and represent appropriate technology for which the government's long-standing policy of promoting renewables would mean that there would be subject to a differential tax regime. Lithium-ion batteries were not among that list of about 14 items. But technology has changed, and lithium-ion batteries are no longer only used in portable electronics, but now are increasingly being used in renewable technologies. And the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology wrote to the Ministry of Finance outlining that the use of lithium-ion batteries is an appropriate technology to mitigate intermittence that some renewable energy solutions introduce to the grid, and further that this technology is likely to remain the solution of choice in the scale-up of renewable systems. The Ministry of Finance therefore provided a no objection letter for the common external tariff suspension on 100,000 units of lithium-ion batteries. And this was approved by the CARICOM Council for Trade and Economic Development for 2 years, which ended on April 3rd, 2021. At that time, no GCT exemption was provided on the batteries. Madam Speaker, as the popularity of these kinds of batteries grew and continues to grow, it was, as I mentioned just now, highlighted in 2020 that there are no provisions in place for GCT relief on lithium-ion batteries for solar application, but only on photovoltaic batteries. So what was done before was that photovoltaic batteries for use in solar had long been excused from GCT. But today, and there was a lot of back and forth on this, but today the category is not just photovoltaic that's used for renewable, but lithium-ion batteries. In order to rectify this, coupled with the recognition of the positive impact of using energy-efficient technologies to reduce the costs associated with the generation of electricity, the Ministry of Finance set out to exempt these batteries from GCT. Additionally, Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Finance provided another no objection letter to seek approval for a further suspension of the common external tariff on 240,000 units of lithium-ion batteries from COTED for 2 years, which is to end on December 31st, 2023. Madam Speaker, the revenue implications for granting the GCT exemption on lithium-ion batteries based on 2019 data reveals that GCT paid was in the order of 193 million in that year. Madam Speaker, the order has only 2 clauses. The first cites the name of the order, the General Consumption Tax GCT Amendment of Schedules Order 2022, and the second amends Part 1C of the Principal Act by inserting paragraph 32 or 32 dot lithium-ion batteries imported for use in solar applications. So not lithium-ions generally, but imported for solar application. Madam Speaker, I now ask this Honourable House to affirm the General Consumption Tax GCT Amendment of Schedules Order 2022 to exempt lithium-ion batteries being imported for solar applications from GCT. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, the Minister of Science, Technology and Energy has said it's long overdue. The industry has been calling for this for many years. It is something that the opposition supports. While there's a revenue loss, we believe the benefit to the country of reducing our dependency on heavy fuel oil outweighs the cost to the government. And I would encourage the government to look at the full scale of all these solar products. We need to be more aggressive. We are in an energy crisis. The price of fuel continues to rise, and certainly the outlook is that it will remain that way for some time now. And we have to reduce our dependency on heavy fuel oil. So we, as an opposition, I spoke about it in the budget presentation. The industry has been calling for it. I know the member from West Portland has been agitating, and I know it is welcome news. I would ask for one clarification. They have now moved from the batteries themselves, and they now have panels that actually they build in the battery in. It's cosmetic so that you don't have to store the batteries in your house. I just want to know if those would be part of the exemption too, because I know customs may say, well, this don't look like a battery, this look like a panel, but it serves the same purpose. But there is a trend where more and more of households are putting in those panels which fit in, and you actually don't see the battery. So I just want to ensure that that is part of it. But we certainly support it, and we welcome this long overdue announcement.
Well, Madam Speaker, normally rising from this seat, I would complain about the lack of notice for a motion like this, but we welcome it because it is long in coming. and it is very simple and straightforward. I just have two questions. Firstly, and I'm also glad that you have addressed the CET matter, because the last time it ran out and it took some time to reinstitute the suspension of CETs on these items. I must declare interest, because there are some existing inverters that are incapable of utilizing these new high-tech batteries, which are very expensive, hence the suspension. There remains, though, viability utilizing the existing deep cycle batteries, and I would want to commend to the government that the removal of GCT could be extended to deep cycle batteries for the purposes of utilization in solar photovoltaic system, so that you're not going to kill a number of existing inverters that can't utilize the new batteries. Secondly, we are very excited to hear that the government has also decided to provide some incentives for electric vehicles. And I want we don't want to preempt the government, but can you indicate what is the time frame for this now to come to Parliament, so that those persons who are looking forward to that transition as we continue this energy crisis can be fully accommodated?
Madam Speaker, recognize the support of the opposition for this move. Indeed, this will make the acquisition of solar solutions by households a lot more affordable, because the batteries are a big component of the cost. And we're very pleased and happy to make this change. I mean, one thing that it shows is that the technology involved in solar and in renewable energies is constantly being updated, constantly changing, and we have to remain vigilant that the principle that was set out some time ago and we have consistently applied across administrations, is that the technologies and the equipment used in renewable energies, that we treat them preferentially. So with respect to the question from the member from Southeast St. Andrew on the panels, yes, my understanding is that the panel, if it's a panel of batteries, my understanding is that that will also be excluded from the need to pay GCT. As far as the older batteries are concerned, you have to get with the times, But, you can have dialogue with the ministry. It's the ministry by the ministry I mean Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, constantly reviews as I mentioned earlier, the group or the list of equipment that represents appropriate technology for use in solar applications, in renewable applications. With respect to the electric vehicle policy, this is the government's intention to reduce the duty payable on electric vehicles to 10% from 30%, and to remove the requirement that the annual registration cost requirement for electric vehicles. That is in the final stages of final CPC stages, and I expect that will come to Parliament, depending on when we break, very, very soon. Technically. And I recognize that you accommodated this on short notice. We took advantage of the fact that we had a session here today. It is administratively in effect. But, if there's not too long a variance between when something is administratively in effect and when the order is affirmed. Thank you, Madam Speaker. If we could now move, I can't say it now. Closing. You should indicate before Darrell. Yeah.
Actually close your debate if the minister wants us.
No, not after. Madam Speaker, I further beg to give notice that, I am asking, Madam Speaker, that the motion be approved.
Members, the question before the House is that the motion brought by the minister be approved. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. The motion is approved.
Should be not.
Go ahead.
Madam Speaker, it is not contemplated for us to do any further business today. I therefore ask that the House adjourn until what?
Yeah. Yes, they were tabled, but we're not debating them today. They were tabled, not being debated today. Ask for the adjournment.
Madam Speaker, it is not contemplated for us to do any further business today. I therefore ask that the House adjourns until a date to be fixed. A date to be fixed.
Members, the question before the House is that the House be adjourned for a date to be fixed and announced. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. This House is now adjourned.